Welcome back, gang. It's Deltia from Deltiasgaming.com, and in this video we discuss everything you need to know about New World Aeternum, which will be available on consoles and PC starting October 15th. I want to walk you through what to expect from this title, how to get started, and some builds and beginner tips and tricks for new or returning players. Thanks New World for sponsoring this video, and if you would like to join in on the action, PC, Xbox Series X and S, or PlayStation 5, use my link in the description below.
When you find this place, when you learn your true power, what will you do with eternity?
Now, here's a rundown of what you need to know about New World Aeternum coming to PC and consoles October 15th. So, New World Aeternum includes the base game, the Rise of the Angry Earth expansion, and all updated content. If you're a PC player returning or starting, you can join the action as well as new console players. It also features revamped storytelling, cinematics, cutscenes, along with the first ever large-scale PvP zone, a 10-player raid, and new solo content. The good news is, with New World Aeternum, you can play with friends on one world, regardless if you're a console or PC player. And speaking of servers, New World made a lot of progress in grouping earlier in 2024 with cross-world expeditions and Group Finder. Therefore, you won't be locked into a localized server grouping for most instance-based content. And with a huge new influx of players, the game will be more alive than ever, and it's a perfect time to jump back in. Lastly, what I am enjoying about New World's new content is that it has something for everyone. While originally New World focused heavily on PvP, the game's PvE has expanded and will now feature 10-player raids, solo content, and a variety of PvP, which is what it's known for. So here's what you need to know about New World, the basics to get you started if you're interested in the game. First up is character creation and classes, and unlike other MMORPGs, New World character creation is mainly aesthetics of your character and or server, what world you play on. The game is a classless system, so your build is tied to your weapon choices, which determine your skills and abilities, and you can change them on the fly easily, so you're not locked into one specific character and having to reroll if you don't like what you originally picked. This is what I love about the combat system and the character creations and builds. It's flexible, you can have one main and stick with it, but still play a bunch of different archetypes. Next up is combat. So New World's combat is action-based, so you'll be able to bar swap, dodge roll, block, and even aim. The combat system is where New World shines in my opinion, giving you an action style with abilities that use cooldowns, but most of which are much shorter in duration and can be used more frequently, so combat feels very snappy in comparison to older MMORPGs. Additionally, New World isn't a tab target game, so you'll have the action style where targeting can be done manually or by aiming your character. You can even aim your range weapons manually, giving a combat a much more dynamic feel. The general flow of combat is based on your equipped weapon, which we will discuss in a second. You have a set of 3 abilities for each weapon equipped, a main hand and an offhand or a back bar, which you can swap to for a secondary weapon and access an additional 3 abilities. Thus, you're going to have 6 in total and go back and forth between different weapon types, either range, melee, just to use the different skills. In between skills, you're doing basic attacks, which can be weaved in between skills and even animation cancel. The primary resource for combat is stamina, so it's monitored in the middle center of your bar. You're using stamina for sprinting, dodge rolling, blocking, etc. So you're going to be doing this balancing act of avoiding attacks with dodges and blocking, doing it timely though, not reacting with a big, huge, long cooldown. And you're going to have to maintain enough stamina for movement and general combat usage while monitoring your cooldowns on your abilities and bar swapping. Moreover, some weapon types use mana, which is blue near the same bar as your stamina. It's another resource pool to pay attention to, allowing you to cast spells. Another interesting mechanic that New World has is healing yourself. This isn't limited to just a healer class or weapon. You can use consumables like regeneration potions, meals, and health potions. So it gives every player a chance to survive while doing damage, and I personally love that when I'm playing New World, is not being forced into always having a pocket healer with me, but I have some way of healing myself, even though it might be minor sometimes, to keep me in the fight, picking the weapon and the combat style that I like the most. Now, next up is weapon and build. So arguably the biggest decision you're going to make in New World is your build, which involves equipping 2 weapons, one in the main hand, one in the offhand, or front bar, back bar, however you define it. I won't give you a massive breakdown of specific build suggestions quite yet, but the average player just starting, here's what you need to know about each weapon, so you can make an informed decision what will suit your playstyle. Sword and Shield. This is your melee weapon using strength and dexterity attributes with lower damage but high utility. Sword and Shield is your tank in PvE and PvP, using gap closers and stuns to control areas and NPC enemies. Consider this your main weapon if you enjoy tanking other games. Great Axe. The Great Axe is a strength-based melee weapon with good area damage AoE and high utility in the form of crowd control. You want to use this if your build focuses on CC and locking down a target with stuns. Warhammer. This is strength-based melee weapon, AoE and damage over time, and I prefer another melee option weapon, and that's the Greatsword. The Greatsword features high damage, but also can be very squishy in terms of survivability. So players who want an ultra-aggressive playstyle with the most damage, you'll love the Greatsword if you like melee. The Spear is up next, and it's another melee weapon with good damage and utility using strength and dexterity. What's nice about the Spear is the extra range, giving you easier chance to hit targets along with knockbacks and utility skills. Consider the Spear a great choice if you're constantly just out of the target range with, say, a Greatsword or another melee weapon. The blunderbuss is my favorite weapon in New World overall and is considered one of the strongest because it acts like a ranged shotgun. The range isn't as far as the bow, but it has great damage, crowd control, damage over time, and it's a killing blow machine. Moreover, the sound and graphics of the blunderbuss are absolutely awesome, and just firing these skills over and over gives you this super unique feel like you're a pirate. The Flail is a similar weapon to the Sword and Shield, and you can use it with one hand or you can use it with the shield, and it provides a lot of AoE, CC, and damage over time. Another handy thing about the Flail is that it has some self-healing and super useful for leveling or learning the game when survivability is an issue. The Hatchet is another melee weapon using strength and dexterity and does some decent damage in lower utility. The primary means for the Hatchet is throwing it, giving you extra range but sacrificing damage from other melee weapons. This weapon also attacks very fast. Next up is the Bow, and this is your primary range damage dealing weapon and is one of the best in the game overall for non-magic users. You can do great damage in PvE and PvP and also aim manually for headshots. If you don't want the CC of the blunderbuss, Bow is a great range weapon for you. Speaking of range weapons, the Musket is up next, and this is mainly focused on PvP, range damage dealing weapon, and utility that's playstyle dependent. Overall, a musket sounds, looks, and plays very cool, but requires precision-based targeting, which can be difficult for some players who don't want to aim for headshots in MMORPGs. Next is the Rapier. This is considered one of the best weapons in the game and is a melee weapon and is very strong in both PvE and PvP and allows for quick escapes. I play mainly PvP with a Rapier or a blunderbuss or some similar combination because of the quick strike and mobility. Next up is Void Gauntlets, and these are magical rain weapons using intelligence with high utility though lower damage. Consider it like the jack of all trades for magic weapon, dealing some healing, some melee damage, CC debuffs, well, you get the point. Next up is the Fire Staff, and this is your typical glass cannon, huge nuker but feels very squishy. Using intelligence and mana, you can expect big damage but need to be aware of the survivability issues. Next is Ice Gauntlet, and this is a magical weapon that debuffs enemies and has some solid utility all around. And last, we have the Life Staff, which is your healing weapon and can cleanse negative effects and dots. This weapon is intended to heal, but also useful when leveling and needing some type of healing while you're learning the game. Moreover, it is vital to groups in PvE and PvP, just like the Sword and Shield for tanking. Okay, so build combination. So now you're going to jump in the game. I've given you some ideas of the specific weapon types and how should you combine them to make a build and a playstyle. Well, here's my recommendation. For range DPS build, I would recommend going with the Bow and the Hatchet. It's a great combination because you gain the single target of the Bow and the range, while you get strong survivability and quick attack speed with the Hatchet. For melee DPS lovers, I would go with the Greatsword and Great Axe combination for huge damage, but maybe a little bit lower survivability. So with this setup, you're going to sacrifice survivability for massive armor reduction and good AoE. But you need to stay really aggressive, killing enemies before they kill you. You might feel a little bit squishy, so swap to a backbar weapon of the Life Staff instead of a Great Axe while leveling or just learning the game. Next up is tank. So if you want to tank PvE or PvP and more coordinated groups, I'd go Sword and Shield combined with the Warhammer. The Sword and Shield is the obvious go-to weapon for tanking, allow you to crowd control and aggro mobs, but the Warhammer will give you extra debuff, AoE, and CC. For a healer, you want to go with the Life Staff and Void Gauntlet. These weapons pair well together because you gain healing from the Life Staff and all the utility of the Void Gauntlets, plus you can play at range. However, you won't have much damage and shouldn't be used while leveling unless getting the hang of the weapons. For PvP, consider the blunderbuss and ice gauntlet, a fun PvP playstyle with high survivability, great damage, but lacking mobility, and you can combine a rapier with almost any weapon and be successful in the game. So progression is up next, and the current level cap is 65 and was increased with Rise of the Angry Earth expansion. New World's progression system is similar to other MMORPGs with a main story earning experience with side quests, events, monsters, kills, and so on. Moreover, New World has a gear score giving you an idea of how powerful you are, and it can be useful to know where you stand when queuing for content. The leveling experience in New World isn't meant to be rushed, and it's one of my favorite parts of the game. And what makes it so special, in my opinion, is the environment feels alive, especially if you flag for PvP. So you'll get a bonus if you flag for PvP, which allows you to kill other players and for you to be killed. So it's a faster way to level up, and oftentimes it makes it super fun because doing mundane traveling or something around the world turns into an all-out brawl in the middle of nowhere when you find another player ready to tango with you. It's an exciting way to experience a game as it's meant to be, which is dynamic, fun, and you never know when the action could pop off. Another thing that makes New World's environment feel alive is the endless amount of crafting and harvesting materials. So you can get lost in the harvesting and nodes, which is useful in nearly every aspect of the game, including chopping down what seems like an endless amount of trees. There's just so much to the environment in this game. Every inch it feels alive and something you can craft, do, strip, or use the material. As you level up, you're going to gain attribute points to spend on one of 5 categories, so strength for melee weapons, dexterity mainly for range weapons and has some slight increase for melee weapons, intelligence for magic users, focus for healing, and constitution for health. You'll typically want a split between your main stat and constitution for some extra life. While leveling, you can gain additional bonuses and perks while unlocking mechanics in the game. And New World does a really good job of introducing you to content slowly as you explore the world and eases you into arenas and PvP. My recommendation for playing New World for the first time is slowing down and enjoying the exploration, story, and gameplay. Get used to the combat if it's unfamiliar and experiment with weapons to find that perfect combination that fits your playstyle. Up next is armor. Another thing to consider is the armor weight of your gear. You can view armor weight by hovering over the item, and it comes in 3 types: light, normal, and heavy. So what this means is you're not going to be bound by a class that can only wear heavy or light or so on. You can blend them and mix and match depending on your playstyle. You'll have an overall equipment load and weight, which determines a lot of stats, along with dodge rolling costs for stamina. Therefore, you want to find that specific weight targeting for your build and playstyle that allows you to dodge more frequently or block with stamina, etc. And also factions are really important in New World because they determine the company you can join or guild. There are 3 factions: Marauder, Syndicate, and Covenant. Each server or world will have various guilds and companies ran by players that are organizing PvE and PvP events. If you don't know which to join, do some research or just join a guild of helpful players on your server. Each server is going to have a variety of guilds looking to complete content in both PvE and PvP. Speaking of PvP, one of the main draws of New World is PvP, which comes in the form of 3v3, Open World Outpost Rush or OPR, and with this new game, we'll have another open world zone. The 3v3 and Outpost Rush are queue-based and can be done solo or in a group. These are extremely fun and give you a taste of small and large-scale PvP with the click of a button. However, the forts and influence races are scheduled PvP where 3 factions fight over territory on the map. This is where your guild and coordination matters and is extremely fun to participate and witness these massive, large-scale coordinated PvP battles that changes the dynamics of your server by your actions. There's so much to explore in New World. This video could go on for hours and hours and hours. However, I suggest you jump in and try it for yourself using my code in the description below. New World Aeternum will have something for everyone with new improved storytelling, large-scale PvE, more PvP, and a lot more to do. Along with crossplay, cross-server queuing, and console players joining the fun in New World, it will feel more alive than ever. If you got something out of this video, do me a big favor, hit that thumbs up, subscribe, and check out my code in the description below. Thanks for watching.
When you find this place, when you take up your blade,